I apologize for the late start. For those of you online who've had some technical issues, congratulations to all of our staff for finishing another school year, another academic year. You all look relaxed. So let's get started with the superintendent's report.
Well, thank you, Dave. Welcome everyone tonight in the audience and those watching the live stream this evening. As Dave said, I'd like to take a minute to really thank our wonderful VCS retirees. In that room tonight, I think we had close to 125 years of service to our students and community. So I want to just take a moment to wish all our retirees all the best in their retirement. Well deserved for sure. And then also, as Dave said, I'd like to take a minute to thank our hardworking VCS staff. They are so dedicated. This school year was a success. I'll leave it at that. We just had a fantastic school year because of the talented individuals we have working for us. And again, I want to wish all our VCS employees a great summer. Hopefully you can disconnect and relax and have some great family time and friend time. Also, to those community members and family, I want to thank you for all the support that you provide every single year to our district. We couldn't do it without you, so thank you. We hope you have a great summer as well. And with that, the highlight tonight, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our new Sunset Lake principal, Mrs. Brittany Bowles. Just a little bit about Brittany. She's a proud graduate of Vicksburg High School, and in fact attended Sunset Lake Elementary. Earned her bachelor's degree from Western and her master's from the University of Dayton. Began teaching in Ohio, and then came back to Michigan, and she's been working at Mooresbridge Elementary in Portage in a variety of roles, including kindergarten teacher, intervention specialist, and most recently she's been serving as the student and family engagement specialist. Let's give a warm welcome to Brittany. Welcome to the VCS. And Brittany, if you could take a moment, I think you have some friends with you today.
Yes, I brought my husband, Philip. We've been married for 11 years, and we live on Fisher Lake in Three Rivers. And then this is my 8-year-old daughter, Margaret, who will be a 3rd grader at Sunset Lake in the fall. She's coming to mom.
Welcome, Bowles family. We're so excited that you're in Vicksburg Community Schools.
Yeah, it feels
Look
like
forward
coming
to it.
home. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Any questions for Brittany from the board?
I'll take it.
Just a couple other things in my report, and then we'll take just a brief break. Summer services are in full swing here in Vicksburg. We got about 75 students participating at the high school level in our summer services. 15 students are participating in the high impact tutoring program at the middle school. And then we have approximately 88 students will be participating at the elementary level. That's a 6-week program, 2 on, 2 off, 2 on throughout the summer. So we're really excited that we have that many students taking advantage of our dedicated staff. And again, I want to thank our staff for their willingness to support our students this summer. Also, we kicked off the construction season. If you see Dewey in the back nodding off, that's why. No, kidding. But we're really excited. Everything's been staged, and Flurry's going to start soon. So we're excited about the work that's going to get done. 55, 60 days to get a lot done.
Yep.
And so we're looking forward to the final product, but hopefully the stress levels stay down here. We'll get started soon. So just a couple other quick things. I just wanted to talk about Lansing for a minute. They've been pretty busy, more busy than I thought they would be this time of the year. Obviously, we're all awaiting the budget. We're going to hear the annual report from Steve. However, in Lansing, something quite odd happened on Wednesday. The House, very unexpected move, discharged the reinstatement of the 3rd grade retention, reading retention bill, and that came out of committee without any hearing. And that's pretty rare in Lansing. passed on a party line vote. Now it will go to the Senate for consideration. If you recall, the reason I'm bringing this up, the third grade reading law was repealed a few years ago. And now it is back, and the House has already pushed it through to the Senate. So I'm going to keep you posted. As a reminder, that bill requires retention of third graders that don't meet certain reading proficiencies. Of course, there's some things in there that parents can opt through, but stay tuned. It would take effect 27-28 school year, but that's going to require the Senate to pass it and then the governor's signature. So I think there's a way to go on that bill, but I just wanted to make you aware that it is being discussed this summer. And just a couple of quick items that you're going to approve tonight, or for approval tonight. One, our annual student enrollments through Section 105 of the Public Act 94 for the first semester of the 26-27 school year. Currently, we're accepting open enrollments at all grade levels, and so that's on the agenda tonight. And then also our annual renewed membership for the high school and middle school in the MHSAA for the 26 and 27 school year. And with that, that's my report. And I think we'll just take a minute if anybody needs to get to apple knockers. Yeah.
Thank you again.
Nice to meet you, Bill. Nice to meet you.
Congrats again.
It's a good night.
Yes.
Eat it fast.
Did you want to?
Oh, important dates, there really isn't any at this time. I know Tamara did put together the dates, kind of looking forward to the bus carnival in August, and then just the variety of camps that we'll be offering all summer. But nothing major to report in terms of important dates. I think everybody's taking a break.
Couple things. One is, I think, 15 middle school students doing summer work is probably as many as we've ever had, I would think. Because that's a group that's very hard to capture. They're old enough, they don't need childcare.
Yep.
And they don't have to have middle school credits to graduate, so we don't have a great carrot or a great stick for them. But it's great that we finally found a format
Yes.
to try to engage some middle schoolers.
Yeah, very excited about
And
that
then
number.
the other thing for voters to know is the work that's being done this summer is the previous bond. That's work from the previous bond.
That's correct.
So what people just voted on, that's all in the planning stage for a year from now.
Correct.
So this is still leftover work from.
Yeah, thank you for that.
All right, so let's move on to reports and public inquiry, and our VEA president, Mr. Morse.
Do I go to the mic over here?
Yeah, sure.
Hi everyone. Well, my name is Dusty Morris. You knew that already. I'm the choir teacher and the VEA president. And first of all, I'd like to say that VEA appreciates being made a regular agenda item. Thank you for that. While summer break has begun, many teachers continue to help kids get caught up in summer school, which is occurring for every grade level, which of course Keegan shared with you already. We are proud to announce that this year VEA, as we do every year, awarded our Grace Molyneux Scholarship. That is granted to a VHS grad who intends to study education. In this case, it was awarded to Kelsey Tunier. VEA has also awarded several enrichment scholarships for students to use to pay for camps, lessons, and other activities like that they might have to pay money for that they might not have. Tatum Odell, a PE teacher at Toby, coordinated her mileage club for the 5th year in a row. Her efforts inspired staff and students to walk and run over 8,000 miles in 8 weeks.
Wow.
A third of the way around the world.
I'll take your word for it.
Sure.
Top runner Jade Sackrider ran 173 miles during that time period. Indian Lake 3rd grade teachers, Mrs. Robinson and Mrs. Fry, brought back the Indian Lake Talent Show. They had 30 kids participating in that, showing off their talents. And Vicksburg Middle School also held their annual talent show on the last day of school, which is coordinated by Dawn Simpson. She's kind of the lead on that, but also Jen Lyle, Amy Barnhart, Jen Stubbs, and Christian Yu. And they put a lot into that program. That's a lot of work, a lot of after-school time from those teachers. The Toby 5th grade team wanted to share that they had a beautiful legacy tree planting ceremony, a meaningful graduation, complete with ice cream treats, and an auction to award their graduating 5th graders. And the 2nd grade team at Toby enjoyed taking their students to the zoo, where they could see animal habitats in action. Toby teachers encouraged their students to continue learning this summer by presenting games and resources at Toby's Math and Reading Night in May. Speaking of summer enrichment opportunities, Melissa Sparks and the International Thespian Society will present a whole lot more. You approved their Stratford trip at the last meeting, but they will also be holding 2 week-long theater camps in June and present their ITS Cabaret on Tuesday, July 14th. That's held in the Village Pavilion, and they have all sorts of food and desserts, and it features current students and alumni performing all sorts of different Broadway things from past shows and future shows. This and the camps raise funds for our theater and ITS programs and offer some great leadership opportunities to our older theater students. And that's the news for June. Thank you for listening and for your investment in the success of our students.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is our Pathways Annual Report. We just had a graduation, which is always a wonderful thing. And Pathways it's a life-changing school, I think, for many kids, but it presents some real issues with trying to administer. Kelly.
Am I gonna be okay right through talking?
Yeah.
Okay. So my name is Kelly Luke. I'm the principal of Pathways, and I'm excited to share with you just some highlights from this year. Thank you to the board. You are all very encouraging to us. Graduation time is a high, and just lots of great stories that come out of that time, but we're just thankful for your support. This is just some general information for people that don't know about Pathways. Continue to run into people that say, I have no idea what you guys do. We are raising the bar a little bit. This year students had to be here 6 hours and do 6 assignments a week at least. We want more, but this is the minimum. For next school year, we're raising it to 7 hours in person and 7 assignments a week. Again, we know the more they're in person, the better. But we want to be a good balance of get you here, help you make progress, and keep you moving forward at a good pace. So our curriculum is online, but we have certified teachers in lab, and that's what really makes the difference, is we have the content teachers available to give help to students. We have 2 diploma options, a 24-credit diploma, which is similar to the traditional diploma at the high school. We also have a 20-credit, which for older students or students that have different goals, it takes off elective classes and helps them get out into the work world or get to the next stage of life a little quicker. Even looking at this general information, this always makes me think there's just so much more to it, and it's hard to put it in words, but I'm going to give it a shot. It's a climb. Sarah and Adam, I was hoping you would do a little theme song for
okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was going to take this out. I had it in there last year, but it really is work to get up to the 3rd floor. And it really is work for a lot of students to get their diploma. Some come in and they're right at the ground level and have just a long way to go. Some come in and they're close to the top, and we just want to help them. Whatever the next step is for you, whatever the next goal, we want to help you get there. And we really pride ourselves on meeting students where they're at. when they get to us. Students pick pathways for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes it's just, I can't get up in the morning, so my attendance is horrible. Sometimes it doesn't feel like there's enough help for me in other classes, or they go so fast I can't keep up. Sometimes it's way more serious issues like mental health issues, depression, anxiety. At our last graduation, was that last week, was that 2 weeks ago? We had a student share that she had attempted suicide, and Pathways was able to be one step in her journey to get her diploma and even just get herself out of bed, because she was in a pretty big slump for a while, and lots of kids just have life things that come at them, and school is just way more difficult, even for a time. We try to remove barriers of all kinds. Our new washers and dryers are in here. We've been putting those to use. And for some kids, 2 kids just found out the other day, we have washers and dryers here. We've been talking about it for 4 months, but they just got the memo and brought 6 loads. They kept some loads in their car. And for them, they were having to go to the laundromat, use their own money that they're working, and so this is just something helpful to them. The Vicksburg meal train, we have people in the community have been such a blessing to us. The Vicksburg meal train is bringing frozen meals we're sending home with kids on a regular basis. Birthday bags, we're sending home stuff to make a cake and frosting and candles, and go home and cook it for your birthday. We have volunteers that drive the Vicksburg van. On Thursday mornings, they're picking up kids outside of the district and bringing them to school. Generous Hands has been awesome. We have more kids this year than we had last year. It just keeps, the needs are out there, and we want to help meet them. And gas cards, if you come to school, if it's a need, we're giving you a $5 gas card every week if you come to school. Not for everybody, but those who have that need. Also in the winter, hats, scarves, people have donated winter coats and food, toiletry items. We had people taking up donations at the Dollar General and bringing in curling irons and things. Girls were like, I get to take that home. So just people are blessing our program, and we're so thankful. We try to have some in-person classes. Jake Brunacki has found kind of out, he's working, but he's doing an hour a week at Pathways throughout the year. Gilbert and Ivy has displayed some of the sculpture things at the top of the bookshelves. Those are from some Pathways students. But he's coming in, teaching an in-person art class. We're trying to get kids away from the computer when we can and get them out doing things, using their hands. We've had coding classes, 3D printer from the Bardeen grant, a critical thinking class, a career class, plastics and painting, and then moving in May. In May, we had some PE times. Lisa Harbour is a PE teacher, and we were just trying to get kids coming. In this bottom picture, they're playing pickleball, they're shooting hoops. Some kids have never played pickleball, never thrown a ball. They say, I can throw it straight, but I can't throw it where I want to throw it. So just getting kids out and talking to each other and doing things together. Staff would go out. There's my husband, Jason. He's a pickleball maniac. But yeah, so just going out and having fun with kids and counting it as an assignment. Because you're here, you're spending an hour, you're doing something productive. But we're hoping it goes into something so much more. Also, our students can take the EFA classes, the CTE classes. We have kids this year in HVAC, construction trades, medical lab sciences, vet science. We work with slots that the high school has and kind of share the slots. So, yeah, we have Kalamazoo Valley classes. We have 1 student in the early middle college. She'll be a 5th year next year. That's our first EMC student. Celebrations. We try to celebrate anything and everything just to get kids excited. And we had a Bardeen grant to take our kids to the movies. We went and saw Super Mario. That's our group in front of Celebration Cinema. One of our teachers became a United States citizen this year, so We made that a big celebration, decorated his desk. Connor Bowling went all out, came in, gave him that flag, and came in all decked out. But sometimes it's student of the week, sometimes it's you finished a class or you got promoted to the next grade because you have enough credits now to actually be a junior and be a senior. So we try to jump on those celebrations. Connections, we want to make connections with kids. We think that's our biggest strength. Sometimes it's, we have a day where we're playing a game or you get this done and you get to do this. Sometimes it's going over, this bottom left is their grad plans. These are the classes you're done with already. These are the classes next on your agenda. We want to talk to you about it. We want to get a goal, wrap that up, or 2 more classes and you're a junior. So we want to make those connections with kids and let them see the end is in sight. The bottom middle picture, we do check-ins and check-outs every day with students. So when you get here, you have to write down what time you got here. You have to tell your homeroom teacher, this is my plan for the day. This is what I'm going to get done today. And when you leave, you got to show us that you did it. We're going to confirm that you did that, but you're going to check out and just adding accountability, adding awareness. A couple years ago, they would come and say, how many did I get done this week? You should know. What time did I get here? You should know that. So we're trying to, make them more responsible, make them more accountable for their learning. Bell ringing, when the student gets done, their homeroom teacher gets to kind of join them in the bell ringing. That's a big deal. Sometimes students have their parents come in and you ring the bell upstairs, people from their offices come out or come up. It's just a fun time. Then this is our latest group of graduates. This is why we're here. This is the part that could make me cry. Does make me cry. We have one student in this group, first ever in his family. We had a first ever in January, another first ever in his family to get a diploma. It's a big deal. One student, I think, he kicked out 4 times. He kept coming back. The second time's a charm. And 1 semester off. 3rd time's a charm. Okay, the 4th time, it really was the charm for the 4th time. One student would leave every day, I'm done. You kind of be like, see you tomorrow. Like, and then he'll be back, and people would be like, oh no, he's leaving. I'm like, he's back. Yeah, one of the students was the one who shared about her mental health issues. One student had been to 6 different schools before he got to us. So it failed, it wasn't working, and it came to us 5 classes to go, and took the whole year, but we got it done. So our successes don't look like other schools, but man, our successes are amazing. As of June 8th, we have had 342 graduates. We just keep on counting.
Kelly, how many years has Pathways been in operation for those 300 students?
16.
Oh.
I came in 1 year into it as like a mentor teacher, and it was the WAVE program at that point. Switched over to Pathways. That's all I have.
I received a thank you note from you, from your group with a picture of the graduates, and I have to say thank you for showing them the dignity that other graduates get in other graduations. I was really impressed with the sentiments in the note that you had written, and the picture of the graduates was just so cool. You could just see that they're proud of themselves, and they should be. So I really appreciate your attention to that. I'm sure it means a lot to them.
Yes, thank you very much. Having that program is a true gem of our district. The opportunity that we've given 342 students to go on to what they thought was at one point lost. It's a huge thing. And that's made possible by the dedication of you and your staff. Thank you.
We're behind you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Our next item our budget and finance report. Mr. Goss.
All right, one moment, please, while I connect. I had this just a second ago, but, oh, here we go.
Nope.
All right, well, it's that time of year again. Okay, so I'm gonna, a few things here, I'm gonna quickly go over the monthly budget progress report, the investments, and that type of thing. And then I'm gonna go through the budget, and then we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in just a second. But, just starting off, well, let's see, no, I messed myself up, but I will put this up on the screen. Well, maybe it stays on the other window. Monthly budget progress report and SAS activity through the end of May. I'm going to go through this very quickly because I think our time is probably better spent on the budget amendment as well as the preliminary budget for next year. But just a quick comment before I start here. This document, the May budget progress report, reflects the proposed June amended figures. All right. So looking at revenue, revenue came in year to date $29.24 million, or about 76%. You can see that that's a little bit ahead of where we were at this time last year. But based on my work, I feel like our amendment that's a good close snapshot of where we should finish the year. On the expenditure side, we are, as far as instructional expenditures, almost 17.65 million. Support services at 12.68 million. And then you can see there's an additional breakdown for some other categories for athletics, community services, and interfund transfers. And our year-to-date total expenditures are $31,680,000, or just about 80.5% of the proposed June amended budget. Just a few very quick comments. When we get into the presentation, I'll talk from just a high level about kind of the changes to the current year budget, but we had originally started the year anticipating a $567,000 shortfall, and through a combination of factors, right now that looks like we should end the year closer to a $1 million drawdown. Now, I do know there are some areas where I think I may still have a little bit of cushion, and I think there's a chance we may come in a little bit better than that, and I hope that that's the case. That would certainly be a positive. I try to create the amendments to be conservative but realistic based on the best information that I have at the time. So that revision from 567 to 998 is really a combination of fairly, individually, no major single line items. Our revenue projections are coming in lower than we expected for a variety of reasons, and our costs have gone up in some areas. And so, the net effect is an additional, not quite $500,000 of shortfall. But we'll talk more about that in just a second. On the next page, the expenditures on a year-to-date basis by object code, and you can see that salaries and benefits stand at $26,174,000, or not quite 80% of the revised budget. And then you can see there's a breakdown there for purchase services, supplies, capital outlay, and other. And at this time last year, we were a little bit further ahead, closer to 82% as opposed to 80.5%. But there's some significant invoices that haven't been reflected here yet. Just as an example, there's a $180,000 invoice from KRISA for the CTE program for the year. And so that's a change in how that program is operated. And so, last year those programs were in-house and those costs would have been reflected in salaries and benefits throughout the year. Whereas in this case, we've received an invoice, but it's one transaction and it relates to the whole year. So, particularly in the salaries and benefits, you'll see that we're just a small amount ahead of the same percentage last year, but I'm very comfortable with where we are for salaries and benefits on the revised budget. I think that, there's some areas in the non-compensation that, may come in a little bit lower than expected, and, that would be a positive. All right, any questions on that? All right, next item, I'm just gonna quickly, let's see here, review the investments as of May 31st. And you'll see this is very similar to how it's looked in the past, or in past months. Total funds that are invested currently are just over $11 million, broken down between remaining building and site funds. There are some debt service dollars, and then finally general fund. Rates continue to be relatively stable, and it seems like the commentary has switched away from rate decreases to more rate increases. So we'll just have to, see how that plays out over time. Any questions on that?
So if you're saying we're gonna be short in the budget, $500,000, $2 million,
Yep.
is that coming out of the general fund?
Well, yeah, that is the general fund piece. Now, these are just, the investment schedule just represents funds that are on hand in an investment account. So it doesn't include our, checking accounts and that type of thing. So the fact that we have, $4.3 million invested in general fund dollars is a reflection that the district has pretty stable and healthy reserves. However, as we continue, I would expect the amount of excess funds that can be tied up, I would expect that to decline, and I would expect interest revenue to decline as those reserves come down. All right, and I'll talk more about that, but I would say we've known that we were going to be operating with a structural deficit for a period of time. That was planned. That was, when we came off the federal funding cliff after COVID, we knew that, the level of funding was not going to keep pace. And so, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into the budget side. All right. Other questions? All right, if not, then I'm going to switch over to the budget presentation. Now, I know this has a reputation of being a very long and detailed endeavor, so you might want to fill up your coffee or do whatever you need to do. I'm just trying to get it to start the presentation. But what I'd like to say is I'm taking a slightly different approach this year. Just bear with me. It doesn't want to. Okay, I guess it's explained correctly up there. So tonight I have a grand total of 8 slides, and that includes the title and the closing slide. So I'm getting away from, it's an experiment. I'm gonna try to keep it at a much higher level with some key messages and have some discussion, and then hopefully we'll see from there. And afterwards, the board would like a more detailed run through. We can do the extended version 2 at a later date if that would be helpful. However, so let's just get into what we're here to do tonight. And of course, also as part of this, we will conduct a budget hearing, which is a legal requirement related to the property taxes that we levy. Simple process, and we'll go through that in just a few minutes. All right, the 25-26 amended budget and the 26-27 preliminary budget. Now I'm focusing solely on the general fund for our purposes here tonight. We obviously have other funds, debt retirement funds, building and site funds, special revenue funds. We have all of those, but the majority of what we do flows through the general fund. all right? And that's really where our hearing requirements and everything are around that. So information in the memo and the resolutions pertains to all the funds, but tonight I'm just gonna focus on the general fund, okay? Now, the crazy thing is, see, this is why I was certain that I had this figured out when I connected, but as I'm scrolling through my slides, oh, here we go, all right. Thank you for your patience. All right, key messages. 25, 26, our projected results, I would say have weakened, I would call it modestly during the course of the fiscal year. And I'll talk a little bit about what that is. 26, 27, as I was responding to Ron, the preliminary budget continues what I would call a planned structural operating deficit. And the reason for that is we're going through an adjustment period. The level of funding, you know, the years of COVID funding and significantly higher than normal year increases in foundation allowance are not happening. All right, so meanwhile, enrollment continues to be kind of a pressure. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about fund balance. And the message is going to be, it's important. It provides stability. And I think this is something I say every year. Fund balance gives us options. It gives us flexibility when we go through periods where our expenditures are growing faster than our revenues. And that's certainly the case today. All right? So now with that, just from a high level, I mentioned when we looked at the 25, 26, the monthly budget progress report, we started with projected shortfall of 0.57 million. And by the way, that's on, you know, roughly 39 million of revenues and expenditures. Our revenue assumptions decreased by 0.13 million, or 130,000. All right, that's a combination of shifts with the state's funding, enrollment decline, and that type of thing. All right, and 0.13 million on 39 million that's a pretty small revision in the grand scheme of things. On the expenditure side, revised budget for 25-26 shows an upward revision to expenditures of 0.3 million. Again, that's, you know, less, you know, 2/3% or whatever. I listed the percent in the memo, but I mean, it's fairly modest on, you know, the level of volume that we have. So we go from a $0.57 million projected shortfall to 1.0 million, or just under, but for rounding purposes, it's 1 million. That would, you know, we project to finish the year with fund balance of just under 8.5 million, and that would represent between 21 and 22% of the current year budget. All right, things that are driving that: costs are going up, everything's going up, collective bargaining, and that's, you know, that was. I continue to feel great about the settlements that we reached this year. We made a lot of progress. If our goal, and I believe one of our goals is to be able to attract and retain the best staff that we can, we have to be competitive. And I feel like our, you know, the changes that we made helped to achieve that. And I think there's actually direct evidence of that. I mean, there was a pretty remarkably low number of retirements that we recognized tonight, much lower than a lot of years. And some of those retirements, I believe, based on, you know, what people have said, were directly related to some of the changes. So that's a, you know, that's a positive thing. The flip side of that is when we talk about salary increases and, you know, steps, those assume a certain level of retirements. You know, retirements, you know, if you have a teacher at the, you know, end of their career who are at the top of the scale and they retire and they're replaced by someone at the start of their career, those savings help pay for those increases. And over time, that's the case. But there are, you know, you have years where you have some, you know, fewer or more retirements, and so that is, I would call that on some level a little bit of a timing shift, all right? Enrollment is another issue. Enrollment is fairly soft. That is, I believe, not a reflection on anything that's an issue with the school district, but it is reflective of a much broader trend across the state of Michigan. When I started, over 20 years ago in 03, enrollment, statewide K-12 enrollment has declined every single year since then, I believe. And there's no, they're not catastrophic losses, but that population of school-age children is declining in the state of Michigan, and it has been for over 20 years. And forward projections don't show that changing. So that's a very real factor that, we have to keep in mind. And then finally, inflation. Whether it's the need to increase salaries and benefits, or energy costs. Energy costs are a big one right now, and that appears to be something that's going to continue for some period of time. I don't know how long, but we certainly see it in fuel prices, and I think we feel that all as individuals, but when you think about, a fleet of school buses that, drive 350,000 miles a year collectively, that's a lot of fuel. So, diesel is $3 a gallon versus $5 a gallon. That makes and our buses get maybe 7 miles a gallon. That becomes a big line item. So, those are just the things that we deal with. All right, any questions there? I mean, we're like halfway through this, so. So that was a quick. So that's 25, 26. Now 26, 27. Primary assumptions. Foundation allowance. First and foremost, we don't have a school aid budget yet. I think we'll get one pretty soon. It is an election year, after all, and that sometimes has something to do with how quickly those things get wrapped up. Pretty common theme is an increase to the foundation allowance of $250 a kid. And, that is almost 2.5%, which is great, but inflation has been running higher than that. So that is really kind of a sub-inflationary increase in our base funding. All right, projected enrollment. Now this is one, so when I say that I think there's some room in the 25-26 amendment, and I hope that we come in a little bit better than that, I don't have the same confidence in 26-27. I just want to be clear that I don't want to be alarmist, but I have a lot of questions about the coming year, all right? So, and one of them is enrollment. I'm projecting in this budget a reduction or a decline of around 20 kids. I hope it's only that bad. Looking at our current levels of kindergarten enrollment, I'm nervous about that assumption, but a reduction of 20 aligns with enrollment projections that we had prepared by an outside firm, and that's what I'm going with for this budget. We won't know that until October. So, we'll start to get a sense, at the beginning of the school year, but those numbers shift pretty significantly between the first day of school and count day. So, but we usually can get a sense. So that's something I think we need to really keep our eyes on. Net revenue growth, I project to be up 1.4%. That's, reflecting the reduction in enrollment, it's reflecting the increase in the foundation, and other assumptions regarding, programs and that type of thing. And again, we don't know exactly what the school aid budget is going to look like. In the last several years, there's been some curveballs at the last minute, I would say, and things that get added in that we didn't see coming, hadn't heard about, that have real implications for how we operate and how we allocate our resources. So a significant portion of that increase, and as I say on key expenditure drivers, we're gonna be investing a lot of money in the CTE program, and that's great. That's a positive. Kudos to all the work that Jason Luke and Adam, and I know a lot of people, Jen, put into that. That is great. But, you know, there's some risk related to it, okay? And we just need to be aware of that because CTE programs operate completely, and if I'm wrong on any of this, let me know, but CTE operates in a completely different world than traditional K-12 funding, compliance, reporting, and this is a new grant by the state of Michigan. They haven't even figured out, we received a huge installment of revenue in May with the instructions that I think 60 or 80% of that was supposed to be spent by September 30th. Well, that doesn't really work when you think about our procurement processes and the planning and everything that has to happen and the approvals that are required and all that. Now, Jason's been working closely with the state. It sounds like the state, and this isn't a problem that's limited to Vicksburg. I think a lot of districts are kind of going through this panic. But we're going to be putting out a lot of money for this program, which is a good thing. But I just look forward to working very closely with the instructional side because there are program requirements that are frankly way beyond what the business office has access to. So that's just one of the things that we need to keep in mind. So 26-27, the preliminary budget, I said total projected revenues of $38.9 million. That's $0.53 million increase. Expenditures, I expect to go up to $40.1 million. That is a $750,000 increase over the current year. So then, if the current year we have, we're projecting a $1.0 million shortfall. For next year, it'd be 1.2. All right, and I think we need to be. That's what I want to talk about next. Okay. Any questions on this before I move to the next slide? All right, I'm going to take this a little bit out of order. I'd like to, before we do the budget hearing, I just want to feel like it's important to kind of continue with that theme. So here is just the current year projected ending fund balance in dollars. 24-25 actual fund balance, both in terms of dollars and a percentage of our budget. What we're projected for 25-26, and then again for 26-27. All right, and last year we had a positive budget variance, and we came in. We added fund equity. We ended at 9.47 million, which at that time is 24.6% of the budget. That's strong. That's excellent. The current year, if we come in as projected, fund balance would drop to 8.47. Still healthy, we're still over 20%. That would be at 21.5%. Now, if we look ahead to next year, projected fund balance would be down to 7.25 million, and that would be still 18%. So, my message here is fund balance is within a financially stable range, but we've got some things that we need to deal with. I'd like to just kind of point out that it's important. As I started by saying, our fund balance levels give us flexibility, and they give us the ability to make intentional, thoughtful decisions and course corrections when, as any organization has to do, they have to make adjustments. And so I think this is something that we can all feel good about. We're still financially stable. We would continue to be stable next year. and by no means is this a budget crisis. It's not a budget crisis unless we choose to make it one. And when I say that, I mean, we have an opportunity to make slight adjustments and avoid, the hard decisions that come with that when you let it get too far. So we have the ability to capture savings when, not every position, I realize that, every time somebody retires or departs, you can't just automatically cut that. But I think it's important to take this time to really be deliberate and thoughtful, so that we avoid that crisis, because I think the last thing we want to do is create the kind of stress and anxiety that those discussions bring. Layoff lists, program cuts. We have the ability to avoid that if we're intentional and strategic. So that's my point with all of this. I'd like to point out that as part of our bond program, and as we prepare to sell bonds, which happens next week, a week from today, as part of that process, we get a rating from Standard & Poor's. It's credit rating, essentially. A few years ago, we got upgraded from an A to an A+ or A positive, and that's excellent. We, specifically in the correspondence, in the rating letter, they refer to things that and it's not just our general fund operations, okay? It's part of they look at the state, they look at the region, they look at taxable values and employment and all of that. So I don't want to overstate it, but one of the key things that they do look at is the financial stability of the district. And, they specifically state in their rating that the district's ability to, maintain reserves above 20% directly contributes to the rating. And they also state that, in the future, if the district is unable to identify savings to kind of balance the budget going forward, that could result in a downgrade. That's not the end of the world, but it has implications in our borrowing costs and everything else. So it's important. So I feel like I've said enough on that. Are there any questions on this before I move to the next?
So, have we started to put forth a plan to evaluate kind of what we're doing to try to level that out? I mean, if you're saying the A+ rating is a 20% kind of reserve,
That's one of the factors.
We're kind of at that threshold right now. And we do have, like you said, employees leaving and all that, but we also have a lot of programs we offer in our district, and it's one of the highlights that we have to give to our students. But are we assessing those and saying, how much are they being used? Do we have programs that have very little participation that maybe we need to think twice about?
We have
try to
we're having a lot of discussions about this, and we have captured some savings along the way, but I would say this is a year where we need to really kind of focus energy specifically on making those adjustments.
And are we able to maybe reach out and work with, say, the Vicksburg School Foundation or other organizations that fund our schools to help in any of these type of situations, to help counter?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. I don't want to speak for the foundations, but in my experience, they like to help pilot things, they like to support innovations, and I don't think their role is to prop up operating budgets. I mean, that's sort of our job, So the foundations, I think, are incredibly helpful when we want to add something, try something new, but I don't think it's our ability to generate additional revenue is somewhat limited.
I think, Ron, as we're looking strategically down the road in the next few years, that's kind of the heavy discussions we're gonna start having. Staffing to student ratios, you know, support staff to student ratios, all of those things are gonna be really important pieces of data, because I don't know what our current percent is in regards to compensation and benefits. That drives most of the budget, 83%, so
Yep.
that's where we need to right size. But yeah, looking at programming, tracking enrollment, you know, maybe shifting some people into positions versus hiring, those types of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've got the ability to do that, but that's a window that closes over time.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have I don't wanna call it a red line, but do you have kind of a point where you're like, okay, we need to maybe go more drastic so we don't lose the security that we have? I mean,
You know, it's hard for me to answer that. We project out the best that we can based on the information that we have, and I think it's gonna be, it's gonna depend on, okay, what does the state budget in its final form look like? And, how does that support what we do, and how does it dictate that we have to change? Because the state, the funding has gotten, I don't want to, dip into political waters, but funding has changed dramatically in the state of Michigan, and the pure foundation allowance to provide operating dollars has become less of a priority in favor of a lot of initiatives that, it's almost like the state government believes they know better how to allocate resources than local schools do. And so some of it's out of our control. So it's going to be a process. But I think we're just going to have to, be very much in tune with everything as it develops. With the next, milestone being, what does the final budget look like? What does our enrollment look like? And, kind of go from there. Now, our hiring, for all the right reasons, we've added a tremendous amount of supports coming out of COVID. I mean, and those needs may very well still be there, but the funding isn't necessarily there. So, I don't want to, this isn't a crisis, but it's a call it's sort of, okay, we have to roll up our sleeves a little bit. And it can't just be a knee jerk, this person retired, let's hire somebody right now, today. I don't think that's, and there are some cases where that will be necessary, but I think if we're looking out for our students and our staff today and into the future, I think we just need to be very cautious and deliberate about it.
There was a period of time when all the schools in the state's fund balances were, and I think we were getting close to 10%, if I remember.
I believe I got rid of some of, all
Yeah,
that.
but there were some schools that the state was gonna take over because they didn't have a fund balance.
Yeah, and that
It
can
was
still
pretty,
happen.
it was pretty desperate, and the situation where it came into play here is we had, I think it was 2008, I may be wrong, but our enrollment went down way more than we anticipated.
Mhm.
So our income went way down, and so rather than pink slip people, we had enough fund balance, so that's when the high school went from block scheduling to the 7-hour day, because that had implications for personnel for the following year, because we had fund balance. We didn't have to make changes which would affect classes kids could take that year,
Yeah,
or whether you're in Mrs. Smith's room at the beginning of the year, nope, she's not gonna be there anymore, now you're in Mrs. Brown's room. We didn't have to do any of that, which
Yeah.
is incredibly disruptive for students and staff. And so it's important to try to maintain it. It's the rate of change we gotta see level off, and now's the time to start thinking about it.
yeah.
Because it's still an adequate fund balance, but you can't go down $1.2 million every year, because
Right.
it will disappear.
Yeah, and you know, I do tend to be somewhat conservative. But, you know, as I was told one time, hope really isn't a strategy. So, you know, the fact that I've been conservative and we've come in better than that, you know, I don't think we can't just rely on that. All right, other questions on this piece? All right, what I'd like to do then, just finally, risks and uncertainties, and I think we've actually talked about many of these. Enrollment is our largest driver of revenue, and so that's something that we have to watch. Final school aid budget hasn't been adopted yet. State funding trends, in my assessment, have given us less flexibility and more risk all along the way in terms of, it's amazing how many different, you talk to one office about grants and another office about grants, and it's like night and day, completely different. And so that's just, that's one of the things that is concerning. It reduces our flexibility. I say inflationary pressures persist in several expenditure categories. There's always pressure to raise compensation and to be competitive, and that's okay. I mean, that's just part of what we do. That's okay. But staffing needs, you know, that's the thing that I think we need to continue to talk about. And of course, the assumptions are based on what we know today, and they'll continue to evolve over the course of the summer and beyond, really. All right. Any further questions at this time? If not, there is a piece of business that we need to complete, and that is the budget hearing, which just deals with our operating tax, or our non-homestead operating levy. And so it's kind of silly because we have to levy that tax in order to receive the full per pupil foundation allowance by the state. So we have to hold a hearing about that. Nonetheless, we'll continue to levy our standard 18 mills on non-homestead property. We're not looking at any increase. And again, that's required to receive the foundation that's assigned by the state. The tax rate is 18 mills. It applies to non-homestead properties, excluding principal residences, qualified ag, qualified forest property, and industrial personal property. Sometimes I get the question, what is qualified agricultural or qualified forest? And I honestly don't know. I've never, you know, that's not data that's handled at a different level of government. That's an assessing issue, and that's not anything that we have any influence or input over. That levy represents that taxable values that continue to go up at a decent rate. That's $2,923,369. That's actually a pretty nice increase over what the rate generated in the current year, but it doesn't matter because that just reduces what the state pays us. It's sort of baked into that, you know, $250 increase. All right, and we use those funds for general operating expenditures. And so that is, there's we would, you know, board president's pleasure, you know, open it for public comment for the hearing piece.
Sure.
And following that, then I would just take any questions or further discussion.
So we do have, as an action item, is 4D, is to approve these amendments that Steve has proposed, and he has given us a much more detailed memo that was in everyone's board packet, that I hope people had a chance to look at as well. But I appreciate talking about the bigger issues, but there's a lot of detail in them. Any other public comment or questions?
Oh, and so that, our current non-homestead operating millage expires, I believe, December 31st of 27. So
What
Sorry.
rate are we at with the non-homestead?
It's 18 mils, and so I wanted to avoid like getting into heavy rollbacks and heavy overrides and all that, which we can certainly do, but it's just kind of a silly state of Michigan thing where we need to levy 18 mils in order to get the full foundation. But state law also requires that operating millages, such as our operating millage, have to be reduced when taxable values increase faster than the rate of inflation. So there's a detailed calculation in our, we're able, because we've taken corrective steps, we're able to still levy the full 18 mils. Because if we didn't, the state doesn't make up the difference, that we just get less than 10,300 a kid, if that makes sense. We can't raise it above that. So we actually have authorized more than 18 mils to account for that erosion, but we at no time can we ever levy more than 18 mils.
Okay. What about our homestead?
So the only purposes we can levy those would be for debt retirement. And then there are countywide millages where those funds flow through, but yeah, we don't have the ability to ask for additional types of taxes. We could do, a sinking fund, but that's the way we've structured our capital financing and capital improvement plan. We've that wouldn't really help us, and sinking funds are. I feel like what we've put in place works better than the sinking fund. All right.
So 27's when that expires?
Yep, and so I honestly have to go back and double check. We would probably hold that election next year sometime, and that would give us time. We may be able to hold that election in 28, but I would need to talk to the attorney's office on that.
Right.
It's from my perspective, at least the plan would be to go back to voters for that in 27. And that, that's an easy sell, but amazingly, somewhere in the state of Michigan, every single election cycle, it goes down. We know what we need to do, we have a supportive community, I think the odds of that are very low here, but it is time and energy and money that we have to put into that simply so we can get the full state level of funding. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's usually, there's a crisis somewhere, I think Otsego one year or something.
Yeah, I
and it's
think I was the
like-
auditor at Otsego Schools when that happened,
Yeah.
and that was a long time ago.
And you're shooting yourself in the foot, because then you don't get your full state, it's a crazy way to go about it, but, yeah.
Yep. All right.
All right, with that then, I think we'll call the hearing to a close. All right. Anything else for Steve before we move on? Okay. Next agenda item is for audience, and we don't have anybody that's signed it up. So we'll move on to board action required. Item 4A is approval of the following board minutes. We have 4A1 minutes from May 11th.
So moved.
Moved by Ron, supported by Tina. Discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is 4A2, minutes from May 18, 2026. Moved by Lucas. Supported by Ron. Discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 4B is approval to accept student enrollments through section 105 of the Public Act 94 for the first semester of 2026-27. And this is always a net gain for us, and when we talk about student enrollment, this is one way to try to keep our student enrollment up. On some agendas, it's also listed as item 4E. It's the same thing. We thought it was so important, we put it down twice. Move approval from Tina. Support from Stephanie. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item 4C is approval to renew membership for VHS and VMS in the Michigan High School Athletic Association from August 1, 2026 through July 31, 2027. Moved by Lucas, supported by Tina. This requires a roll call vote. So Stephanie,
Yes.
Lucas,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
and yes, so that motion carries. Next, item 4D is approval to amend the 25-26 budgets and adopt the appropriations resolution for the 26-27 budgets for the following fund: general fund, special revenue funds, building and site funds for 2022, 2024, 2026, and debt service funds from 2026, 2020, and 2014. Again, there was a lot of detail about all of those in our board packet, and Steve just gave us a summary.
So moved.
Moved by Tina,
Support.
support by Lucas. Is this not a roll call vote?
It's not.
No, it's not? Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, and then, should we remember this, or re-letter this to make the next one 4E?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 4E will be the first reading of the approval of the policy, that's policy 8120.09, and that's a policy regarding, it came from Neola, regarding volunteer requirements, and they still have the same background checks that we've always done, but they add possible CPR and mental health training. Certain coaches might need those things, so it was adding additional language. So I need
So moved.
moved by Tina, support by Ron. Stephanie,
Yes.
Lucas,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
and yes, motion carries. And item 4 would be F, is the second reading of the following policies, which we approved at our last board meeting. As you recall, most of these were adjustments based on additional language or removal on current law that came from Neola. Item 4G2 was related to board superintendent relations that came out of our policy committee, and that was to put language that had been in the contract into policy, so it would apply to all superintendents. So that's just to remind folks. And with the board's permission, we can knock off 1 through 16 at once, if you would make that motion.
So moved.
Tina moved and Lisa supported. This is another roll call. Stephanie,
Yes.
Lucas,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
and yes, motion carries. And with that, go home and start your vacation.